So I've been learning to play the touch guitar now for about a week or so. I had my first lesson earlier this month. It's been a really fun and challenging experience, and I wanted to give you an update on how it's going. So the touch guitar, if you're not familiar, is an 8-string guitar that's designed to be played with the fingers on the fretboard rather than with a pick. This here is the touch guitar that Markus Reuter played on the last few Devin Townsend tours, which he has kindly lent to me as I start learning this instrument. So you might be familiar with the Chapman Stick, which is played in a similar fashion, although it's quite different from this instrument in a number of different ways. So the tuning is one thing. The Chapman Stick is tuned in fourths on one side and fifths on another side. Also, the strings have the lowest one in the middle, and then they go higher as you go out. The touch guitar is much more similar to a traditional guitar, both in sound and feel. The strings go straight up from low to high, just like a normal guitar. The touch guitar is tuned in fifths mostly, and this is really beneficial for playing with two hands. If you're playing with one hand on the fretboard like a normal guitar, then the fourth tuning makes a lot of sense. You have a lot of stuff available in one spot, but the fifth tuning allows you to really take advantage of the entire fretboard with two hands. And finally, the 8 strings give you an extended range, covering the entire range of a normal guitar and a 5-string bass. So in my first lesson with Markus Reuter, we focused on the fundamentals of technique. The entire lesson is up on Markus's channel, by the way, if you want to go much more into detail. This is actually the first time that this information has been public, and it's a really, really brilliant system that he's come up with. So I do recommend checking out the full video. I will be giving you the condensed version here. So in this lesson, we covered a few essential things, like how to hold the instrument, how to play a note, and how to get from one note to another.
So let's just start with something really simple. Just shake my hand here, Sean, okay?
Yeah.
Great. So right now we're putting a little bit of pressure here, right? So, but you can also relax this or release this and kind of like release the whole arm even up to the shoulder. Yeah, great, you're doing great. Okay, and do the same with the left hand. Okay, give me some. Yeah. Okay, then release. Yeah, very good. Very good. Very good. And so here we've already now established, we put energy into the string and we released, but we're still in touch. Yeah. Right. Yeah, so, and this is kind of like the metaphor for the whole thing.
So the very first exercise that Markus showed me is called the sun exercise. It's the first exercise in what Markus calls the family of the most core and fundamental techniques you need to play this instrument.
This very first exercise, which traditionally, and I think I may say this in a YouTube video, was called the wanker.
Okay.
Because you just move the hand up and down the string, right? Yeah. And without pushing down too much. So just touching the surface of the string, you start exploring by moving the hand up and down, and just a couple frets or just a couple inches, right? You don't even want to go far, just move up and down. So only slightly touching the surface of the neck on the back. Yes, such a simple exercise, but it's really the most basic. If I only have like a couple of minutes to warm up before a show, I do that. I just move along the string and just explore. So now you can explore, okay, both hands can go up at the same time, or one hand can go down while the other goes up. And really, this should be like maybe 5 minutes of warm up. And this is the most basic exercise, it's the sun.
Okay, yeah. Next, Markus introduced me to what he calls touch, which is the basic technique we use to play a note. You could think of it as tapping, but it's a bit more nuanced than that, as Markus explains in a previous interview I did with him.
The technique, kind of the idea to tap on a string, I think that's ancient, right? But obviously on a normal guitar, tapping would be an extended technique.
Right.
But what we're going to do here is we're going to focus on the pure, and tapping is not even the right word, like that's where we could call it touch, right? It's a different idea. It's not something that's an extension of plucking and fretting. Right. You know, it's its own thing. And so we're going to focus on that so much that every other extended technique, which will be plucking or hammer-ons and pull-offs, these kind of things, or slides, they will become so easy for you because we will have focused so deeply on getting the actual, putting energy into the string and taking it out of the string, that anything else will be easy.
The basic concept is very easy to understand on the surface, but harder than it looks to physically execute.
Touch basically just means bring the finger down to the string, and by doing that, you're putting some sort of energy into it because you're pushing the string down, it touches the steel fret, and you get a note. And this is what I call touch. Yeah, very good. But you see, the problem comes when you actually want to take the finger off the string. you get a little bit of a pluck. Yes. Even after 25 years of playing this, this is really hard to control, but you will get better at it very soon.
That's hard.
Yeah, it's super hard. Touch, release, and then I call this third step move. Because, like if you were playing another note, you basically go to the other note. And this go-to movement is extremely important for avoiding that open string sound. You kind of like want to sort of roll the finger off a little bit along the string. Touch, release, and move. And I'm just exaggerating now.
It's like this instead of that.
Yeah, it's like a ramp.
And as a drummer, this is a pretty foreign concept because we almost never have to consider the end of a note, right? Most of the time we just hit a drum and it's done. There's a couple exceptions to this. Hi-hat is variable length. Cymbal choke would be another one. But for the most part, drummers control note length by choosing which instrument they're gonna hit. So a rim click is gonna be a lot shorter than a ride cymbal, for example. But now playing this other instrument, I now have to be aware of this whole concept of release. So I kind of have two things to think about anytime I play a note, and that's the start and the end of the note.
Okay, so from here we go to the daughter exercise. So the son tells you how to go from one note to the other, but we're not actually playing a note.
Right.
The daughter exercise is the same movement, but we start adding the touch release move to play notes. And there's a specific pattern that I want you to use for this.
Okay.
We always go 1, 2, 3, and then we go back 4, 3, 2. That's the order of the fingers.
Okay.
And you alternate between the hands. So you do first finger of left hand, first finger of right hand, second, second, third, third, then fourth, fourth, third, third, second, second, and it starts over.
Okay, so first would be
touch, release, move. Great. Release.
Is there a certain way that I am supposed to get my hands out of the way, or just like that is?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good question. And there is nothing, you can't put this into words.
Okay.
That's why we have the exercise. You play the exercise and your body learns to do it.
I see.
Just try to play this faster without considering touch release move. Just do da 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 da. Try that. So you see what happens now is your hands are not moving along string, and you stay in position, and each finger is trying to reach for that position.
Yeah.
And that's not working. The hands always need to be moving, also for you, in order for you to have the energy and the time, the space to accelerate the finger.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Maybe it's time to go to what I call the daughter 2 exercise.
Okay.
Because it's easier. I always show the daughter 1 exercise first because it's harder. We go between the hands. Now with daughter 2 exercise, we just use one hand.
Okay, I was going to ask.
Apply the same pattern, right? We go back and forth. Yes. Yeah.
Is it better to take your hands off the string before or after you move?
So that is the part that is the big unknown, and should always be the big unknown, because it is within that space that you gather the energy to play the next note. It's always different.
Okay.
There is no one answer. Sometimes you may want to move first, and other times it kind of like becomes one thing.
Okay.
This is kind of like part of the technique also, that you don't necessarily want to prepare something before you know what it is.
Right. Yeah.
And from here we go to the mother exercise.
So the mother exercise is basically the combination of the daughter and the son exercise. You know, that was the first name I had before there even was this idea of the family, because I wanted the mother of all exercises.
Okay.
And that's why it was called, you know, because it brings together like these two concepts. One finger per fret and one fret for all fingers.
Yep.
What we're going to do is you're going to play 4 chromatic notes, and And now here on this note, you start rolling. So you repeat this note till you get to the first finger. Yes, and then you play up. And now you go back down from there. That's the mother exercise.
Okay, cool.
So really, I would say that really is enough for the first lesson.
Yeah.
There could be like a completely different approach to this, where you just start to learn where the notes are or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But I have found that to be very, very inefficient.
Yeah. Like part of me really wants to just like play some crazy stuff now, but I know that if I do this work first, then later all of that will be much easier.
Yeah, for sure. And you know how it is with bad habits, right?
Yes, exactly. I don't want any of those.
Yeah, you know, my right hand coming from like the stick initially and then some other instrument, and it been fucked.
Yeah.
And only after over 25 years, I finally found a way to correct.
Good for you, but man,
it's shocking. You know.
It's very hard to reprogram bad habits.
Yes.
Much easier to do it right the first time.
Yes, exactly.
So I learned a tremendous amount from Markus in this first lesson, but of course it's after the lesson that the real work begins. So I spent the rest of that day just kind of jamming and exploring because I really wanted to see what this instrument can do. Now, my original plan for the rest of the week was to focus really heavily on technique and almost not at all on music. I want to get to the music as soon as possible, but I also want to get this technique stuff out of the way so that the music is easier later on. So that was the plan, but it didn't end up quite going that way because I was having way too much fun just jamming on this instrument. So I ended up spending probably 80% of my playing time just having fun and exploring, which I think is also important. And I think this is the kind of push and pull tug of war that you always have when practicing an instrument, is finding the right balance between technique and music. And both are essential. I mean, it would be great if we could just have fun and make music all the time, but without technique, then we can't make the music. And of course, if we focus too much on technique, then it might not serve the music. So you've got to constantly find this balance. Anyway, all of this to say that I spent a lot of time at first just playing around. And I think that was actually healthy and probably the right thing to do, because now it's given me an idea of what I can do. And so that's given me motivation now in the second week to focus a lot more on the exercises, because now I have a more clear vision of what I might want to achieve, and I know that these exercises will help me do that. So here's a few clips of me playing. I'm really optimistic after the first week because I've seen a lot of progress already. If you contrast how much I struggled in the first lesson to get these really basic concepts down to what I was starting to experiment with towards the end of the week, there's a lot of progress that happened there. Still got a long ways to go, but I'm happy with how it's going. So here's a few clips. Hope you enjoy. I want to thank my patrons for supporting what I do here on YouTube. If you like the videos I make, then consider becoming a patron. I've got a lot of perks over there. I've got a Discord server, exclusive videos. I do a really detailed Q&A once a month, and there's also drumless play-alongs and much, much more. So thanks to my patrons, you all are the best. And now let's listen to some sweet, sweet touch guitar.